Hello everyone. So in today's video, it's been a while I think, want to talk specifically about the idea behind, not the idea behind the awareness itself or being present. Because a lot of times I find that in my experience, being present was just, you're just there, but it's actually much deeper than that. So I wanted to kind of talk about that. So. Presence. What is presence? It's this awareness of, as Eckhart puts it, this awareness of space. I noticed this today when I was talking to someone, one of my students, and I watched a video about something related to this where it's kind of like this awareness we have, the limit of the body is not actually awareness. It's like, when the ego is the awareness, it's the one that's in control. It's the one that is doing all that, I guess you can say, processing. It becomes like a lack of awareness. You're not in your body, you're up here in your thoughts, right? So it's, I tie this to exactly what I do, why I do what I do as like a language teacher or guide, is the whole conscious stuff, the conscious process by studying grammar, all those things where it becomes bad, sort of a detrimental habit, is basically it's ineffective, because not to say that language learning is a bad thing, it's more like it's just not natural. So what happens is that it conditions us more to overuse the conscious area of the brain, and therefore, where I would say that that's kind of like ties into where the ego lies, where it's that desire to protect, desire to preserve, to be perfect, to be, it's afraid of many things, especially, I've heard that, I've learned before through my whole experience with all the things that I've gone through, shadow work, Wim Hof method, Eckhart Tolle stuff, etc., all those things, that the ego is always afraid of losing itself. It's afraid of dying, it's afraid of death, it's afraid of change. And I still go through that myself. So that kind of ties in directly, for me, it ties in directly to the conscious process, or the overuse of the conscious, where it's just part of the brain that is basically a door. It's a window, it's a door, it's an entryway to the brain itself. And this is why language learning stuff is focusing on that we develop detrimental, like I said before, habits to think first before speaking, because there's this belief that when we think first before speaking, it's almost like, oh, we're getting it right all the time. It's always about being perfect. We're getting it right. But what it does, it doesn't do anything except think, and it's just, and it becomes this think. It's overusing that conscious part of the brain. I hope that makes sense, right? Whereas if it was more about the subconscious being more childlike, like I said, and when I say childlike in some of my videos, it's all about being present. It's about being creative, intuitive, instinctive, all those things that the subconscious, or rather the whole root of ourselves, our beingness, our where we come from, it's in the subconscious. I don't know, for me it feels like it's this thing that I can connect with, where overusing the conscious, therefore unconscious behavior, is a separation. Whereas if we go back to the subconscious and allowing the conscious to guide us to that, we become actually conscious. There's a connection, there's a flow. There's no unconscious, there's just flow. And we let the subconscious, there's a trusting nature there. There's a trust in the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, right? Wherever you're comfortable calling it. It's subconscious, it's our roots, it's our universal DNA, if you might, So, and it got me to think about thinking about like what starts to happen when presence is more there, like, or rather when you're more awake, when you're more conscious about the words we use, or even the fact that I said all those things, I noticed that I'm going between you, we. Well, it's the same thing for me. And kind of tying this back to, well, not tying this back, to kind of relating this to the law of attraction. It's that whole, the emotions behind the words is basically what dictates the frequency that you're in. So the higher the frequency, the more aware you are, therefore the more whole you are in awareness with your whole process. There's a flow with the conscious, subconscious, all that stuff. It's not unconscious, it's awakened, right? So basically, number one, it's like, I kind of made a list here. It's an awareness of your words. So it's so for example, one thing that caught me was, for example, why I seek silence. Is it because of something else? Is it sort of I wanted to avoid and neglect, or just kind of suppress the real emotion behind it? Why I want silence? Is it because I hate noise? Well, that's where it becomes, where it's like that whole, again, the law of attraction, where you get used to the feeling and the emotion behind it, so you're aware that what you give out is basically stems from what you're actually feeling. That sort of doesn't make sense that much, but basically it is kind of using the words that I learned through The Magic, the book The Magic by Rhonda Byrne, is, the frequency that you're, well, actually there's another guy, I'll post his website, I'll post his YouTube link, his channel on down here, and he explained this. It's all about the frequency stuff, so it makes sense because it's the same thing. Gratitude is a frequency where it starts, and then it kind of spreads out into what we really want, what we're telling the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, right? So it's if I, for example, want silence, because the hidden underneath this, what do you call this, the underlying emotion behind it is because I hate noise, I'm just ignoring, I'm suppressing the noise, right? What we resist persists. I learned this from my shadow work stuff. So instead of resisting the noise, what I've done is accept that, hey, what are the gifts I can find in having noise? I can hear. I'm able to listen. I'm able to, it's working. The organ is working. So then it goes back into the law of attraction stuff. It's being grateful for the fact that, hey, I have ears, I have hearing, I still have hearing, those things, right? So, but this also relates to the whole being present thing, where you're becoming aware of those thoughts and those choices that we make, and therefore you start to choose wisely what your words are. It's not to say that making mistakes is a bad thing. That's part of the process. So instead of saying that, instead of just thinking about the word and saying, I want silence, I look back into the emotion. I said, okay, so I want silence, not because that's what I want. I want healthy relationship with silence and noise. So therefore what happens is I'm no longer separating the two. I'm accepting the two are oneness. It's this one thing. Two sides of the same coin, as I've always said. It's like life and death, right? You become more elevated in a way. Yeah, you can see it, elevated in your awareness of through words itself. That's what this whole session is about. This whole video I wanted to talk about was that whole being aware of your semantics, the words to choose, the words that you choose to use. So, am I being disturbed, or is it silence that comes from an appreciation of noise? Because once you start elevating yourself, once you're in that frequency of appreciating noise, the gift behind it is being able to hear, at least that's one thing, then you're starting to signal to your subconscious, the universe. At least that's the way it is for me. I don't want to describe things through specific labels, but to me that's how I'm putting the words in. This is what the words I'm choosing to describe what I know. But that's what it is. It's a learning process, I mean, I'm sure that some people will start to nitpick at certain things, but that's up to them. So semantics becomes a thing, basically, but not to the point where we overthink things. It's more going back to the body. This is why I kind of relate the two things. Being aware of your words is also being aware. It starts from being aware of your body through the process of gratitude and being present and changing your frequency. The other thing is that I wanted to say is that for me, when I was invested in a thought, I noticed that whenever I was invested in a thought, I noticed that the emotion behind it is that investment. In other words, I'm attached to the thought, and therefore it becomes a belief. That's what sets the frequency. And then I'm going to read this one. Emotions and frequency therefore dictate the truth in our subconscious, or subconscious, however that is. So am I conscious about it, or is it an unconscious thing? Is there a connection from the conscious to the subconscious? Is there awareness? So those are the things I've asked myself. It just came to me today, and I was like, okay, I'm so glad, I'm grateful for these like I guess you can say of wisdom. I don't know. Right, so I hope this is kind of enlightening. I hope this kind of helps, and not too confusing, but I hope you get my point. For those who get it, great. For those who don't, you will get it somehow. Life is a process, and life was a process for me too. It's still a process for me today. So I hope this helps. Thank you so much for listening. There is another upcoming video where I'm going to make. It's about something else. But thank you for listening. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.